Now, Democratic candidate Bernie Sanders took aim at Jamie Dimon after the J.P. Morgan Chase CEO criticized socialism at an appearance on Wednesday. Now, this is when he was addressing a business roundtable event in Washington, D.C. Dimon denounced the idea of the government owning and controlling companies, saying that they would be used for political reasons instead of economics. He said the scenario over time would lead to, quote, huge deterioration, adding that the whole notion that that's somehow going to be the course for America is a huge mistake. So now Jamie Dimon is doing something interesting. He is actually using socialism in the correct context and using the correct definition of socialism. Wow, he's like the first one that actually can correctly define socialism as owning the means of production. Got to give him credit for that. Now, where I take credit away is that he is incorrectly attributing that to Bernie Sanders. That is not what Bernie Sanders is calling to do. What Bernie Sanders wants and what he called for and explained during his entire speech about democratic socialism is that he wants a capitalist system, but where we actually take care of people with things like Medicare for all, free college, a living wage, things like that. Social democracy along the lines of FDR and the New Deal. I know the labels get confusing, right? In fact, here's what Bernie Sanders said afterwards. He says, quote, and I love this, I didn't hear Jamie Dimon criticizing socialism when Wall Street begged for the largest federal bailout in American history. Some $700 billion from the Treasury and even more from the Fed. Damn. I love that. Now, this, of course, is an example of what Bernie Sanders correctly called corporate socialism. Now, what is corporate socialism? It's basically where public money gets shoveled towards big companies who don't need it, and in the case of J.P. Morgan, don't actually deserve it. And why do I say that? If you had a hand in creating the financial mess of 2008, well, then you didn't earn that money. Maybe you should not be in business. You know, kind of let the free market take care of things. You guys always want to talk about the free market, but when you mess up, which is what these big banks did in doing, you know, their terrible securities and basically what amounted to mortgage fraud, right? Then if you mess up the economy doing that stuff, then you should not be in business. You should be allowed to fail, right? But when that happens, instead of failing in a system where you have corporate socialism, then they go and they beg the government to get that. And in the case of 2008, they did get that. And not only is it, you know, in the form of bailouts, but you also have subsidies. Right now, we give oil companies subsidies to the tunes of billions of dollars. Why are we doing that? Why are we giving the most profitable corporations on earth a subsidy? And that makes no sense unless you look at the framing of corporate socialism, which is what we are living in right now. This is the system that is happening at this very moment. Corporate socialism. And it's defined as anything that helps corporations and the wealthy instead of helping regular working people. That is not the definition that Bernie Sanders, what Jamie Dimon ascribed, right, to Bernie Sanders is not what Bernie Sanders wants. It is not what Bernie Sanders called for. But corporate socialism, however, it's exactly what Jamie Dimon had called for. And so, look, that's why I love it how Bernie fights back, right? I like that he defined what he calls democratic socialism, because when you let the center and the right wing define it, they're always going to compare it to communism. When in reality, Bernie Sanders is nothing more than a New Deal Democrat who wants to finish what FDR started. And that's, of course, bringing justice to regular working people. Economic justice. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.